What's up, boys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. We're doing something a little different today, something I thought would be a little more interesting. We're going to be ranking every part in JOJO. JOJO is a series that means a lot to me. I have consumed almost all of its media, and I love it to death. Excuse me. I'd like to give a little context of where I come from in JOJO. I have been a JOJO fan for at least like 3-4 years now. I have consumed almost everything. Let's see. I had a list right here. Okay. So for part 1, Phantom Blood, the beginning, I have both read and watched it. Part 2, Battle Tendency, 3, Stardust Crusaders, 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, and 5, Golden Wind. I have watched it all. I have read, though, the back half of Golden Wind. I've also read the rest of the parts, at least for the most part. I read part 6, Stone Ocean. I read part 7, Steel Ball Run. And I have read like a third of part 8, JoJo Leon. And JoJo Lands, the 9th part, I don't know anything about it yet. It just came out like, 3 months ago, and it's going on. I do want to get to it, but I should probably finish part 8 first, because I know they're like, especially part 8 and 9 are very connected from what I hear. So I want to make sure I got a good handle on that first. But I thought it'd be interesting to just do a little ranking of them all. They are all very different. It's interesting to see how Araki's style changes throughout these parts, especially in the beginning, early stages. So I got a little tier list right here that we can just go through. I've got all the parts listed down here, and yeah, simple enough. Let's just rank them. Fuck. We'll start with part 1, actually. Phantom Blood. I believe this was written around 1989. And it is a little rough. I'm not gonna lie. It's very different from the rest of JoJo. It has a much more fantasy, medieval element to it. Not just in the time period, but also I feel like the theming of the story with relics, with MacGuffins, which is definitely not what I feel became JoJo later on. Probably starting from around like part 4, it really changed the process and how they do it. But part 1 is okay. I do love Jonathan and Dio's initial relationship because it's the foundation of everything else in a way. So I would probably put this down probably in a B tier. Like, it's honestly not that great. Even watching the anime, I know it was like 6, 7, 8 episodes, the first part, and the first time I watched it, it was kind of a slog. I only watched it because my sister wanted me to, and then we both got into it once part 2 happened. It's all right. I love it. I still think you should start there, but it is kind of mid. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, you know? But let's jump straight into part 2. Part 2 is where this fucking thing gets so good, dude. I want to read part 2 so badly. I have the manga for part 1 on my bookshelf over in my living room, and I just need part 2, and dude, part 2 is so good. This is the part that this made me want to watch the rest of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Joseph, amazing protagonist. He is funny. He's an asshole. He's a big asshole, and that does not change. But he's an interesting character. He's charismatic, regardless of that. And him and his partner, dude, they're such a good combo. Like I talk about this a little later on with some similar themes with part 6, where they initially fucking hate each other, and I think that dynamic just works out great. That actually might be the case for all of my favorite parts. Now that I'm looking at them all, It seems to be a recurring theme for me. But part 2, amazing part. I would probably put that, yep, S tier. Fuck it. S tier. Stardust Crusaders, I'm very similar to part 1. I'm mixed on. I do love the group. I do love the characters there. I think that the Monster of the Week this is the one that started the Monster of the Week format. And I felt it was a little rough when they started off like that. The stands, of course, were not all interesting. Some of them were a little weird. There's a couple scenes in part 3 that kind of just give me an ick. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen or read them. But the gorilla, there is that one with Paul and the Ref where there's like that woman and he changes his body. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it, if you see it, or if you've already seen it. Some parts of part 3 just are a little weird. They haven't aged that well. I do love the finale. It is also just, it's so long, dude. This is the one part where it feels like it drags on after a while. It's literally just, hey, we do this. Oh no, this guy showed up. And then they beat him, and then it's, oh no, this guy showed up. It feels like a Scooby-Doo show. You don't want to watch too much Scooby-Doo all at once, I feel like. And I think that's the same case with JoJo. Or with part 3, at least. I would probably put this in a B tier underneath part 1. I would say part 1 just has a bit more of a narrative plot that I like to experience, and it's also it's significantly shorter, so you can really get through the plot. Part 3 is all right. The characters that come from it are the best characters in the series, though, just hands down. It just needed a bit more polish to it, and it needed to be shorter. I cannot express that enough. It needed to be shorter. The plot was not that interesting to run you along for, what was it, 40, 50 episodes? It was a bit of a slog. However, what comes after it is worth the wait. Where is part 4? There it is. Diamond is Unbreakable. Admittedly, I don't remember a lot about this part. It is my sister's favorite part, or at least one of them. Josuke, cool as shit. His stand was baller. The villain, oh my god, dude, he's so interesting. He's so sociopathic. He's a manipulator. He gets in your head. I love it. There was definitely more highs than lows in part 4, although it does not stand out to me that much. It was good. I won't knock any points off of it. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of problems I had with it. Maybe it was a little too casual for my liking, considering how JoJo is a very action-heavy, high-stakes show, and I feel like part 4 was more laid back. You know, the Morio theme, I feel perfectly encapsulates the laid-back feel of how part 4 is, how it's more of a slice of life sort of thing. And while it did do well, I think that JoJo works better with higher stakes. So I would probably put this also in a B, maybe above everything else. Come on. Above part 1 and part 3. Part 3 definitely had better stakes, but dragged on too long. And part 4 has less stakes, but it did not drag on too long. I think it used its time much better. It was much more wholesome, but it just didn't really stand out enough to me to be something I would put higher on this list. So that's part 4. We can move on to part 5, Golden Wind. This one is fun. I have a weird dynamic with this one. So part 5 was, the anime came out when I had finished the rest of the show. Like part 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had to watch half of it, and then I was so impatient that I just read the rest of the manga through the manga, and then when the rest of the show came out, I rewatched that portion that I hadn't seen yet. My sister hates part 5, like, with a passion. And I've probably taken a bit of that behavioral conditioning onto me. Part 5 is okay. I think I need to rewatch it again. I think part 5 has a lot to it. It has a lot more than I feel like I experienced. Because a lot of people in the community think that part 5 is their favorite part. And I think that maybe I'm just missing something. I do want to rewatch it, or at least reread it, maybe properly this time, and it would make a lot more sense. I could get more of an idea of the themes of it. I do really like the stands they used in that part, especially with Giorno's stand. I think it's one of the coolest stands. I honestly don't remember a lot as well with this one. I did like the character. I thought the characters were a little weird. Their relationship, I couldn't get a good hold of. It seemed at times where they liked each other and at times where they hated each other. It was very confusing. Again, maybe I just didn't interpret it right. Maybe I just didn't. It didn't hold my attention, and I lost some of the process in that. So I would probably put it. I put it above again. These are the parts where it's a little weird. The rest of the parts are much more interesting, I feel like. I should rearrange some of these, actually. 1 second. Again, there's nothing much to say about these parts that I haven't already said. I think I'm trying to give them all too much credit by putting them all in B. That's kind of weird. Part 1 and 3 are not my favorite parts. They are although part 5 is probably a low B for me at the moment. Again, I will rewatch it. But we'll move on. Part 6 is amazing, dude. I love part 6. This is a bit of a change from the first 5 parts. Part 6 is my second favorite part. Full stop. I think Jolene is an amazing character. I love her stand. I love Foo Fighters, especially. Foo Fighters is one of the best characters in the entire JoJo universe. I have not seen the show for part 6 yet. I've read it only, and maybe that's affecting it somehow. But I do want to finish part 6, the anime. I'm going to watch it with my sister. But I love it. A lot of people gave it shit. I think they're wrong. I think there might be a bit of a bias with how Jolene is the first female JoJo protagonist. Not that that's the only criticism people have of it, when it's not really a criticism in the first place. There are problems with part 6. But I think that maybe that perception messed up how people view it. I just love it. I think part 6 is the best JoJo part, one of them. I think Jolene is my favorite JoJo alongside the other 2 that I'm going to put in S tier. So we'll put that right here above Battle Tendency. I love Battle Tendency. I love Joseph, but I think Jolene has a bit more of an edge to her that I enjoy. You can't do shit to Jolene. She will fuck you up, dude. All right. On to part 7. Here we go again, dude. Part 7 is my favorite part of all time. I love it. I think part 7 is the best part of JoJo. I think it's the strongest in terms of theming, in terms of like how it deals with like religion, the religious aspect of it. I find really interesting. I love the twists on the characters, which if you've seen part 7, you know what I'm talking about. It takes a lot of what we love about JoJo and it puts it into a new light. It changes sort of pre-established themes that we know. Like what we know about JoJo is still there, but it's changed to a point where it's almost unrecognizable in the best way that I can say that. I just love everything about it. I think JoJo Part 7 kicks off the new trilogy of JoJo very well, because there are 3 eras. There's Part 1 through 3, which I think was the mask era, where it deals with that mask that gives you stands, basically. Something like that. I can't recall exactly. Part 4 through 6 was a little different, where it was kind of different for everything in there. I feel like Part 4 through 6 had the most variety. It was definitely the most different. I would probably honestly call it like the Jotaro era, considering he is in every single one of those parts. It's all right. Part 7, though, great kickoff for the next trilogy. I love it to death. It's just great. This is easily the S tier. This is the best part of JoJo, and I would experience parts 1 through 6 all over again just to experience part 7 again. I think it's the best part. JoJo Part 8 is fucking weird. I have only read a third of JoJo Part 8, so admittedly, this is not like not a great way to judge it, because I haven't experienced the whole thing. I do like the main protagonist stand. I do like the twist on his character as well. He probably has the most interesting character conflict, where most of the JoJo parts, I feel like the main character doesn't have as much of an arc than the main character of Part 8 does. Part 8 is more of a mystery. And of course, I still haven't solved that mystery. I'm not even halfway done. But I do know a little bit about what happens later on, and it's really interesting. I feel like Part 8, though, is a little confused as to what it itself is. A lot of the characters I found in Part 8, and maybe I just need to reread it, I found them confusing. I felt like Part 8 had a lot of characters that would do one thing and then say another thing. They weren't consistent. They didn't really figure it out. Maybe that's just part of the mystery, actually. It could just be part of the mystery aspect. Of course, I wouldn't know. But I did find Part 8 a little bit hard to read through when I was initially reading it. I would probably put it in a B as well. That really changes my perspective on everything. You know what? Let me put Part 4 in A. Part 4 is a good part. Yeah. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh on them, because I already knew coming in what my S tiers were going to be. Steel Ball Run, Stone Ocean, Battle Tendencies. The rest of them are also good, but I feel like 7, 6, and 2 really show off the strongest JoJo that you can have. And yeah, so there's my tier list. Subscribe. Yeah. Bye, I guess.